Henry had lived a long life. He was now in his late 70s, but his steps still held the strength and pride of a man who had once served his country with honor. He had fought many years ago during a time when the world was full of danger and uncertainty. Henry had been a soldier in a great war, a war that had changed his life forever. The memories of those days were both heavy and precious to him. After many years of quiet living, Henry decided it was time to visit a place that meant a lot to him, London, the heart of a kingdom he had served. He wanted to see the royal palace, a place he had heard stories about since he was a young boy. It was a symbol of tradition, courage, and strength. Just like the values Henry held close to his heart, Henry packed his bags carefully. He brought with him an old uniform from his service days. It was clean and pressed, even if it showed signs of age. This uniform was more than just clothes. It was a reminder of a time when he had a mission bigger than himself. When he wore it, he felt connected to the thousands of men and women who had stood by his side in faraway lands. When Henry arrived in London, the city welcomed him with its busy streets, red buses, and the sound of people talking many languages. But Henry's eyes were set on one place, the royal palace. The palace stood tall and proud, its walls full of history. Tourists walked by taking pictures, but Henry walked slowly and carefully. He wanted to feel the place, to understand its meaning. The day was bright, with sunlight shining softly on the palace gates. Henry could see the royal guards standing still like statues. Their uniforms were sharp and perfect. They wore tall black hats made of bearskin, and their faces were calm and serious. To Henry, they looked strong, but also kind in a quiet way. These guards reminded him of the soldiers he had known, young men full of hope and duty. Henry moved closer to the gates, feeling his heart beat faster. He remembered the old days, the sounds of marching, the smell of the earth, the friends he had lost, and those he had helped protect. But now, standing here as a visitor, he was filled with peaceful pride. He was here to honor not just himself, but all those who had served before and after him. As Henry walked near the guards, he noticed one young man standing straight and tall. The guard's eyes were focused ahead, his posture perfect. Henry felt a deep respect for this young soldier. He thought of all the years between them, the difference in time, but the same commitment to serve. Henry stopped for a moment. His hands slowly rose, fingers straight and firm, to his forehead in a salute. It was a gesture full of meaning, a sign of respect that soldiers everywhere understood. The salute carried the weight of experience, the gratitude for sacrifice, and the hope for peace. The young guard did not move at first. He stood motionless, as trained, his face serious. But then, something changed. He turned his head slowly, his eyes meeting Henry's. In that moment, words were not needed. Their eyes spoke of honor and respect. The guard returned the salute, holding it steady and true. Henry felt a warmth inside. This small moment was powerful. It connected two men from different times, but with the same heart for service. Around them, the world moved on. Tourists smiled, cameras clicked, but Henry and the guard shared a quiet, meaningful bond. For Henry, the day was not just about seeing the palace or the guards. It was about remembering and honoring the life he had lived and the people he had served with. It was about passing a silent message to the new generation that their duty mattered. And that respect was always the greatest reward. As the salute ended, Henry lowered his hand slowly. He smiled softly, feeling proud and humble at the same time. The guard stood tall once more, a silent protector of the palace and its history. Henry knew he would never forget this moment. Walking away, Henry looked back at the palace gates one last time. He felt a deep peace inside. This visit was more than a trip. It was a journey of the heart. It was a chance to say thank you and to be thanked, even in silence. Henry's story was one of many. But today, at that palace gate, his past and present had come together in a simple salute, a salute that held all the respect, courage, and love of a lifetime spent in service. After that meaningful moment near the palace gates, Henry continued to walk slowly around the royal grounds. He was careful with each step, taking in everything with his eyes and heart. The grand buildings, the tall stone walls, the shiny guards. Standing still, all of it reminded him of the past and the importance of honor and duty. Henry's mind wandered back to his days as a young soldier. He remembered waking up early in the morning, the sound of bugles calling his unit to stand ready. He remembered the long marches, the feeling of the heavy pack on his back, and the look in his comrades' eyes, a mix of fear and determination. Though those days were hard, they were full of meaning. Now, as he looked at the royal guard in front of him, Henry saw a young man named James. James was not just a guard. He was a symbol of the tradition that Henry had once served. James wore his uniform perfectly, standing tall and proud. He was trained to be serious, calm, and unmovable. His job was to protect the palace and show strength to the world. Henry knew that behind James's calm face was a young man with hopes and dreams, just like Henry once had. Henry wished he could tell James stories about the old days, about the friends he had lost, and about the meaning of honor. But instead, Henry decided to show his respect in a way that all soldiers understand, by saluting. When Henry raised his hand to salute James, it was more than a simple gesture. It was a way to say, "I honor you. I honor the service you give. And I honor the sacrifices you might make." The salute was filled with history, respect, and gratitude. James noticed Henry's salute. At first he remained still, as he had been trained to do. Royal guards are taught to keep their position, no matter what. They do not speak, smile, or move during their watch. But when James saw the man in front of him, an elderly veteran, with a look of pride and respect, something inside him changed. James slowly turned his head toward Henry. Their eyes met. Those eyes, James saw decades of experience, sacrifice, and strength. Henry saw youth, courage, and promise. It was a silent conversation that needed no words. James returned the salute. It was perfect, steady, and full of respect. But then James did something that surprised everyone nearby. Took a step forward. Slowly and carefully, he reached up and removed his tall black bearskin hat. This was a big deal. Guards are not supposed to move, speak, or remove their hats. While on duty, it is part of the strict rules they must follow. But James understood that this moment was special. It was a chance to honor a man who had given so much. Removing the hat was his way of saying, "Thank you, I see you, respect." You people around started to notice. Some tourists stopped taking pictures and just watched. Others whispered quietly to each other. The moment felt different, more human, more real. Henry smiled warmly. He felt tears in his eyes, but he blinked them away. This small act from the young guard touched his heart deeply. It was a sign that respect and honor were alive and well. Even in a world that could sometimes feel cold and distant, James stood there, hat in hand, showing his true respect. Then he nodded gently to Henry. It was a simple gesture, but it said everything: respect, gratitude, and connection. Henry nodded back. In that moment, two men from very different times and places shared a powerful bond. They understood each other without speaking a single word. After a few seconds, James carefully put his hat back on. He returned to his perfect posture and continued his watch. But the feeling of the moment stayed with everyone who saw it. Henry stayed for a while longer, feeling happy and proud. He knew that this moment would stay in his heart forever. It was proof that the spirit of service and respect could cross generations. As he walked away, Henry felt lighter. He thought about how important it was to honor the past and support the future. The young guards like James would one day become veterans too. Someone else would salute them with the same respect Henry had shown today. Henry's visit was not just about seeing a famous place. It was about understanding what it means to serve, about the power of a simple gesture, about the connection between people who stand for something bigger than themselves. Henry looked once more at the royal palace. The guards still stood tall. The crowd still moved, and the city continued to buzz. But Henry's heart was full. He had seen respect, he had felt honor, and he knew that those values would never fade. After that quiet and powerful exchange, Henry felt a deep sense of connection with James, the young royal guard. The guard's simple act of respect, removing his bearskin hat and nodding gently, was not something Henry expected. But it meant the world to him. It showed that even though times had changed, the respect for those who served before still lived strong in the hearts of the new generation. Henry watched as James returned to his post. The young guard stood perfectly still, again his face serious but carrying a small, almost invisible softness in his eyes. Henry knew that behind the stoic exterior, James must have felt moved by their moment. Henry understood the burden of duty and the power of respect. People nearby began to talk quietly among themselves. Some tourists whispered about the rare sight of a guard breaking protocol to honor a veteran. Others pulled out their phones and quietly shared the moment on social media. Soon, pictures and videos of the salute and the guard's response started spreading. The story was simple, but touched many hearts, a reminder of honor, kindness, and the bond between soldiers, no matter their age. Henry felt proud but also humble. He had never sought recognition for his service, but this moment made him realize how important it was to connect and support each other across generations. He remembered how hard those war years were, the fear, the loss, and the hope that kept soldiers going. To see a young man like James show such respect made, Henry believed that those sacrifices were not forgotten. As Henry walked slowly away from the palace gates, his thoughts drifted to the many men and women he had served with. Some were still alive, many had passed on. He thought about how the world had changed since those days. But some things remained the same: courage, honor, and respect. Those values were what made soldiers brothers and sisters, no matter where or when they served. Back at the palace, James stood silently, but inside he felt a warmth he couldn't explain. He had been trained to keep a straight face, never to show emotion, and never to break the rules. Yet the salute from Henry had broken through all that. James realized that behind every uniform was a story, a person with hopes, fears, and dreams. James thought about his own family and what serving as a royal guard meant to them. He felt proud to be part of this tradition, but also aware of the heavy responsibility it carried. The respect he showed Henry was a way to honor not only the past but also the future. It was a silent promise to carry on the values of service and respect. Word about the salute spread quickly. Local newspapers picked up the story, calling it a heartwarming moment of respect between a war veteran and a royal guard. Many people wrote letters and messages to the palace, praising James for his kindness and Henry for his lifelong service. The palace staff even mentioned the incident during their daily briefings, saying it reminded them why their work mattered. Henry, meanwhile, was invited to a small gathering organized by a veterans group in London. There, he shared his story about the salute and the young guard's response. Many of the veterans nodded with understanding and said how proud they felt. They talked about the importance of remembering the past and supporting the present. At the gathering, Henry met other veterans from different wars and backgrounds. They shared memories of their own service and the challenges they faced returning to civilian life. Some spoke about feeling forgotten or lonely. But Henry's story gave them hope that respect and kindness were still alive. Henry also met young soldiers and guards like James, listened carefully to his stories. They asked questions about the old days and how things had changed. Henry felt happy to pass on lessons of courage, humility, and respect to these younger men and women. He knew that they would carry those values forward, just like James had shown. Meanwhile, James found himself thinking more about his role as a royal guard. The moment with Henry had changed something inside him. He wanted to find ways to honor veterans and support those who served before him. He started talking to his colleagues and superiors about organizing small events or visits to local veteran homes. James hoped that these acts of kindness would build bridges between the generations. Over the next few days, Henry and James exchanged a few words when they met again near the palace gates. They smiled, shook hands, and shared stories about their lives. Henry told James about his experiences in the war, the friends he had lost, and the lessons he learned. James shared his hopes for the future and how proud he was to serve his country. Their friendship grew quietly but strongly. They became symbols of the bond between past and present, a reminder that honor and respect never fade with time. People who saw them together often felt inspired and moved by their story. The royal palace took notice too, officials decided, to include the story of Henry and James in a special exhibition about the history of the royal guards and the men and women who served the country. Photos of the salute and the guards' response were displayed, along with letters and stories. From veterans like Henry, visitors to the exhibition often stopped by to look at the pictures and read about the salute that touched so many hearts. The story became a way to teach people about the importance of respect, service, and kindness, values that go beyond uniforms and ceremonies. Henry felt grateful to be part of something bigger than himself. He realized that even a simple salute could create a powerful connection between people. James felt proud to have shown that respect mattered, no matter the rules or traditions. Together, they reminded everyone that behind every soldier, past or present, was a person worthy of honor and kindness. Their story became a quiet but shining example of how respect and humanity can bridge time and differences. And so, Henry and James continued their lives, connected by a moment that changed them both. Henry's past met James's present, creating a legacy of honor that would inspire others for years to come. The story of Henry's salute and James's heartfelt response quickly spread beyond the palace grounds. What started as a quiet moment between two men became a powerful symbol that touched many people's hearts. Social media was full of photos and videos showing Henry in his old uniform saluting James, who respectfully removed his bearskin hat and nodded. People from all over the world shared the story, praising the young guard for his kindness and the veteran for his bravery. News outlets picked up the story too. Newspapers and television channels interviewed Henry and James, asking them how it felt to share that special moment. Henry spoke softly but with pride. He said the salute was a way to show respect for all who had served, and that James's response reminded him that honor and kindness were still alive. James explained that it was important to him to recognize the sacrifices made by those who came before, and that he wanted to carry those values forward in his own service. The public reaction was overwhelming. Many people said they were moved to tears by the story. For some, it was a reminder of their own family members who had served in the military. For others, it showed how simple acts of respect could make a big difference in a world that often felt divided and rushed. Veteran organizations praised James and Henry, saying their story brought attention to the importance of caring for those who served. They called on communities to support veterans and active soldiers better, especially older veterans who might feel forgotten. Local schools also got involved. Teachers used the story as a way to teach children about respect, history, and the importance of honoring people who serve their country. Students wrote letters to veterans, made drawings, and learned about the sacrifices soldiers make. The story of Henry and James became a lesson in kindness and gratitude for young minds. At the royal palace, the staff were proud of James's actions. Even though he had broken the usual rules by removing his hat on duty, they saw that he had done it from the heart. The palace officials decided to recognize the moment by including it in a special exhibition about service and honor. Visitors to the palace could now see photos and videos of the salute, along with stories about veterans like Henry and guards like James. Henry was invited to speak at events across the city. He shared his story many times, always reminding people that respect and kindness were the greatest honors a person could give. Henry's words inspired many, and he became a symbol of hope and courage for veterans and civilians alike. James continued his work as a royal guard, but the experience had changed him. He began volunteering at local veterans centers, helping older soldiers who needed support. He organized small gatherings where veterans and young soldiers could meet, share stories, and build friendships. James wanted to make sure that no veteran ever felt alone or forgotten. Their story even reached the government. Some officials spoke about the importance of honoring veterans and making sure they receive proper care and respect. Henry and James became quiet ambassadors of goodwill, showing how simple gestures could bring people together. For Henry, this time in London became one of the most meaningful of his life. The salute had started as a personal act of respect but grew into something much bigger. It was a reminder that honor never fades, no matter how many years pass. As the days went on, Henry and James stayed in touch. They met regularly, sharing tea and laughter. They talked about their lives, their hopes, and their dreams. Their friendship was a bridge between the past and present, a living example of the power of respect and kindness. Many people who heard their story said it gave them hope. It showed that even in a busy world, moments of true connection and honor were possible. Henry and James reminded everyone that behind every uniform was a person with a story worth listening to. The Royal Palace exhibition grew popular. Visitors from all over the world came to see the photos and learn about the salute. Teachers brought students, veterans brought their families. People left the exhibition feeling touched and inspired. Henry often thought about the moment at the palace gate. It was simple but powerful. The salute, the removal of the hat, the nod to each part, told a story of respect, courage, and humanity. It was a story that connected generations and showed that the greatest strength comes from kindness. James carried that lesson with him every day. As he stood watch at the palace, he remembered Henry's salute and the meaning behind it. He knew that his duty was more than just guarding a building. It was about protecting a legacy of honor and respect. Together, Henry and James had created a memory that would last forever. Their story was proof that even small acts of kindness can break down walls and bring people closer. It was a reminder that respect is timeless and that every person deserves to be honored. Henry and James's story had become something much bigger than either of them expected. What started as a simple salute and a respectful nod had grown into a symbol of honor that touched many people. Now, as their friendship deepened, they both felt that their connection had a purpose: to inspire others, to remind the world about the true meaning of respect and service. After the exhibition at the Royal Palace opened, many visitors came to see the pictures and learn about the moment between Henry and James. People stood quietly, reading the stories and looking at the photographs. Some visitors wiped tears from their eyes. This story reminded them that behind every uniform was a person with hopes, dreams, and a heart full of courage. Henry often returned to the palace, sometimes alone, and sometimes with family and friends. Each visit was special. He would stand by the gates looking at the guards and remembering the day he saluted James. It was a moment frozen in time but alive in his heart. He felt proud that his life's service was honored in such a meaningful way. James continued his role as a royal guard with even greater respect and pride. The salute from Henry taught him that the job was more than just standing still and looking serious. It was about representing something bigger, a legacy of bravery, kindness, and respect that connected generations. James felt lucky to be part of that legacy. Their story also inspired many other soldiers and veterans. Veteran groups began to invite Henry to speak at gatherings in schools. He shared his memories and the lesson he learned from James that respect could cross time and bring people together. His words gave hope to those who sometimes felt forgotten or alone. James started working closely with veterans, volunteering at centers and helping organize events where young soldiers could meet older veterans. He wanted to create a community where stories and respect were shared openly. James knew that building those connections was important for everyone's well-being. The Royal Palace continued to highlight their story in its exhibitions and special events. It became a place where visitors could learn about the value of service and the power of a simple gesture. Henry and James's salute reminded people that sometimes the smallest actions carry the greatest meaning. One day, Henry and James were invited to a special ceremony at the palace. Many people gathered to honor veterans and active soldiers alike. Henry stood quietly, his uniform neat and his heart full. James stood beside him, proud and respectful. When Henry raised his hand in salute, James returned it with the same respect. In warmth as before, the crowd watched in silence, moved by the connection between the two men. Cameras flashed, but Henry and James only saw each other. Their salute was more than a gesture. It was a promise to remember, respect, and care for those who serve. After the ceremony, Henry and James spoke about their journey. Henry said, "This moment changed my life. It showed me that respect never dies, no matter how much time passes." James replied, "You taught me that being a guard is about heart and honor, not just rules. I will carry that with me always." Their friendship became a story told again and again, a story of courage, kindness, and respect that bridged generations. It showed that behind every uniform, there was a person deserving of honor and understanding. Henry often reflected on his life. He thought about the battles, the friends he lost, and the peace he found in moments like the salute with James. He felt grateful that he could share this message with the world. He knew that respect and kindness were gifts that anyone could give, and they could change lives. James kept standing guard at the palace, but now with a new purpose. Every time he saw a veteran or a soldier, he remembered Henry's salute. It reminded him to see the person, not just the uniform, and to offer respect and kindness whenever he could. Together, Henry and James left a legacy that would inspire others for years to come. Their story showed that true honor is not just in medals or ceremonies, but in simple acts of respect and connection. It was a reminder that no matter who you are or when you served, your courage and your heart matter, and so the salute that started it all became a lasting symbol, a salute that crossed time, touched hearts, and united generations in the quiet but powerful language of respect.